Eating real, nourishing food is definitely important for overall health, and I know it's a priority for many people, myself included, but it definitely can be on the expensive side in a lot of circumstances. And I wanted to share some tips and some tricks with you guys that can help you to buy the healthy food that you really want without spending as much money. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be talking all about ways to save money on healthy food. There is no denying that groceries are very expensive nowadays. And I wanted to share these tips with you guys because I know so many of you that watch this channel really do want to eat healthier, to make more nutritious choices when it comes to their diet. But in a lot of ways, it might just not physically be possible for financial reasons because food is expensive. So I'm going to share with you guys a lot of tips that you can apply the next time you go food shopping so that you can try and get the foods that you really want without spending a ton of money. I do have one stat I want to share with you guys before we jump into all the tips that may help you look at your food budget and maybe the expense of food a little bit differently. Here in the US in 1973, the average household spent 18% of their household income on food and 8% on healthcare. Now fast forward to 2013, it was completely flipped. The average household spent 18% of their household income on healthcare and 8% on their food. So this is a perfectly inverse relationship. And I think that there's a lot that goes into, why someone would be spending more money on healthcare. It's not just food. However, I am very much a believer that food is a huge piece of that puzzle. And it's very interesting to see that we cut the amount of money that we spent on food by a lot. We're not talking 1 or 2%, we're talking 10% less. And clearly our health suffered. Out of all of the things that you do for your health, think of sleep and exercise and stress reduction. I feel like when it comes to food, there's nothing else you do as frequently that impacts your health. We literally eat, most people eat 3 times a day, maybe some snacks in there as well. That is a lot of opportunity to, support your health or possibly provide detriments to your health. And you guys know that I am not all or nothing extreme by any means. I am all for finding a balance with our diets because if we're very extreme and very militant about our diets, it can cause a lot of stress. And stress is also very toxic to the body and can deteriorate your health. And this is literally the reason I created my entire mindful eating course, because I want to teach people how to actually strike that balance between proper nutrition education and applying those principles so that you can actually properly nourish your body, but not in a way that's stressful, actually being able to balance your food and listen to your body and let your body guide you to find that balance, because no one is going to provide a more perfect balance for your actual body than your body. So I am obviously very passionate about this topic and I'm not all or nothing, but it certainly cannot be understated the importance of nutrition and healthy food when it comes to our overall health. So that being said, I am always hoping to inspire and motivate you to eat well, to eat more nourishing foods, and to do that all in a way that is enjoyable. But a lot of times it can be difficult to actually purchase those healthy foods. So let's get into the tips to make it a little bit more reasonable for you to eat well if you're on a tight budget. My very first tip when it comes to buying healthy groceries is to actually buy them outside of the grocery store. You guys know that I love Thrive Market. That is a really great place to buy groceries at a discount that you would find for a much higher price at your local health food store. I especially love their Thrive Market brand. I feel like there's such good deals on quality, a lot of times organic foods without spending the higher prices that you're going to see at the grocery store. You guys know that I also love Costco, which is also membership based. There are so many great healthy, wholesome options, especially when I feel like when it comes to pantry staples at Costco. And most of the time, the Kirkland brand, which is the Costco brand, they just pay the high-end name brand that we all know and recognize to make their Kirkland products, if that makes sense. I just found out that this is just one example, I like to buy Central Milling flour, and I just found out that the Costco flour is literally the Central Milling all-purpose flour, so it's the exact same thing. And where I actually typically buy my flour leads me to my next favorite way to purchase outside the grocery store, and that is Azure Standard. I have been buying from Azure for a few years now, and they have an incredible selection. Literally nothing on their website, or I should say everything on their website is healthy and wholesome, quality ingredients. It's like food that you really can trust. And they do also have their own brand, the Azure Standard brand, where you're going to find good discounts, versus buying the grocery store. But mainly why I purchase from Azure is because they have incredible bulk options. Costco is like this too. I feel like they have larger sizes of everything. But I mean, with Azure, you can get like massive bulk, make massive bulk purchases. I feel like most people have heard of Thrive Market and Costco, but if Azure Standard is new to you, I'll leave my link down below so you guys can check out all of their offerings. Again, I purchased from them for years, and we typically go there for our bulk purchases. So that leads me to my second tip, which is buying in bulk. When you're buying in bulk, it is always going to cost less than buying individual items. So for me, I love stocking up on pantry staples in bulk always. So when it comes to flour or wheat berries or tomato products, beans, all of these more shelf stable yet real whole foods, I will buy in bulk. I buy some from Costco, I buy some from Azure. It just kind of depends, but I love purchasing the things that I know we're going to continue to use over and over. I'm just gonna go ahead and buy as much of it as I can properly store so that I'm gonna save a lot of money in the long run. Another way to bulk buy real food is by purchasing meat directly from a farmer. So the best thing that I should say the best value you're probably ever going to get on meat is if you go in and you buy a whole or a half or a quarter animal. So for example, buying a quarter cow, it's going to give you tons of meat. Or we just bought actually from a mom friend that raises pigs. We bought a whole pig from her. First off, it tastes so good. I've never had pork so delicious in my life. But also, if we were to buy all of that pork individually from the grocery store, or even just directly from, a farmer, we would have spent a lot more because, we're taking that whole pig off of them. So they know that they're selling off that whole thing. So they can give me a better price than if I were to just over time pick from their selection over time. Now, bulk buying is incredible for saving money, but there is one drawback, and that is you have to buy a lot of things up front. So, you kind of need that money up front to purchase the bulk item in order to get those savings, which can be tricky or not possible. But I do have a tip here, and that is to try and go in with a friend or a family member or a neighbor, buddy up and go in on a big giant Azure order together, or go in on a quarter cow from your local farmer and just split it. That is one way that you can get access to that real nourishing food, but at the discounted bulk price without having to spend all of that money up front. So that's shopping outside of the grocery store, but obviously going to the grocery store is still what most people are mostly going to be doing. So I do have tips for you there as well. The first is to take advantage of the store's sales flyers. So whether you're actually looking at the paper version, or you go, pretty much every grocery store has an app nowadays, they'll list their sales on there. So here's a little bit of grocery store marketing / psychology that you might not know. So all of those sale items that they're putting up there typically are what are considered loss leaders, which means that the store is actually selling them at a loss. They're not making money, they're actually losing money if you come in and buy that discounted item. But the whole purpose of the loss leaders is to draw people into the store, because they know that when most people come into the store, they are not just going to buy that one discounted item. They're gonna, I am actually low on this, I'm gonna grab that. Oh, I'm here, let's grab some milk, whatever. So whether they're trying to get you into the store or not, those sales are there for you to take advantage of. So, if you're really on a budget, paying attention to those things, and maybe planning your meals around those items versus doing the opposite, which is planning the meals first and then going to buy the food. See what is on sale, what's heavily discounted, and try and plan your healthy meals around that. There's also a pretty cool app that I learned about not too long ago, and there may be other ones like this too, and if you know of them, please put them in the comments below to help everybody out. But it's called Flash Food, and it is basically where grocery stores put food that they are heavily discounting on this app that you can then go in and add to a cart, and then you basically do a grocery pickup. So these heavily discounted items are usually surplus items, so it might be just they overstocked something, or it could be seasonal items they no longer, they're trying to sell off because that holiday is past. Or it could just be that they have foods that are nearing expiration, and that is another really great thing to look out for when you're trying to save money, because a lot of times those foods, they're not expired yet, but they're getting close, so they'll discount them so they can get them off the shelf. My next tip for saving money while shopping at the grocery store is to be savvy about the proteins that you are buying. One of the most expensive food items that you can buy is meat, and that is because it is a long haul to raise meat, especially quality meat. Now, if you're buying from your local farmer and you're buying in bulk, then you aren't really going to be buying meat from the grocery store. But if you are buying from the grocery store, I would recommend that you try and go for bone-in or whole options. So for example, buying a whole chicken. That whole chicken is going to cost you likely around $1 less per pound than if you were to buy the pre-cut chicken breasts. Now, the beautiful thing about a whole chicken is not only are you getting all of that meat for $1 less per pound, which is a pretty big deal, but after you cook that chicken and you eat all that chicken, you can take those bones and you can make extremely rich, nourishing stock, aka bone broth. I feel like everybody and their mother knows about bone broth, probably knows how to make it, but if you don't, I do have a video where I show you exactly how I make bone broth at home with my Instant Pot, but I also go into all of the nutritional benefits and a little bit of the science behind why bone broth is so nourishing, which I feel like it's always very helpful when you can connect the dots of what something is actually doing for you. It just creates a lot of intrinsic motivation for you to actually consume it. So buying that whole chicken is going to give you cheaper but still high quality chicken to eat, and then it's also going to give you basically for free bone broth that is incredibly rich in protein, in vitamins and minerals, in collagen and gelatin. And if you were to buy bone broth from the store, even if you're buying it from, for example, Costco that sells bone broth, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. Bone broth is not cheap, and you can literally make it for free. But then don't forget, there's also lots of other protein options that are going to cost far less than purchasing, especially high quality meat. Eggs are a big one, and egg prices are a little bit crazy nowadays, but compared to meat, they are still far less. Canned fish is another big one, so canned tuna, canned salmon, if you can stomach canned sardines, they are incredibly nourishing. And then also all of your legumes, so all of your beans and your lentils, these are all things that can help you bulk up meals, add tons of protein, which is gonna be very filling and satiating to your meals without having to spend a ton of money. My next tip is for produce, and that is for whenever you can, whenever it makes sense, buy the frozen fruits and vegetables. Obviously there's certainly something to eating fresh fruits and vegetables, but if there's certain recipes that you're using where you could just use a frozen version instead, then do it, because it's going to save you a lot of money. And fruits and vegetables are typically flash frozen. They're frozen very quickly after they're picked. So in a lot of cases, they actually might contain more nutrients and enzymes and whatever else than their fresh counterparts that have been, sitting for a while after they've been picked. Maybe they've been transported on a truck. Now they're sitting in the grocery store. So it's certainly not less nutritious to go with the frozen option. And I would just say, make sure when you're buying them, just buy the straight up broccoli or, the straight up vegetable mix, trying to avoid the ones that have sauces and different things added. And then kind of a side tip is, me personally, I would never, because a lot of them can just be microwaved in the bag, I would personally never put a plastic bag and cook food in it in the microwave. I know it's quick and it's fast, but it can leach a lot of things into your food that you don't want to be eating. My last tip for the grocery store is just to buy food in their most basic form whenever possible. So when you look at packaged foods, whether they're highly processed and therefore like devoid of nutrients, or even if they are, you know, made of whole real ingredients and they're actually pretty nourishing and wholesome options, you're just going to be spending a lot more money, you know, on that nutrition, if that makes sense. Your processed foods may be cheaper, but they cost a lot for not really giving your body anything. And then your healthier package options are going to cost a lot for those, you know, wholesome ingredients. But again, because someone actually had to prepare them and they had to be made and then they had to be packaged, they're just going to cost a lot more at the end of the day than if you were to buy the individual ingredients themselves. And that leads me to my next tip, which is to skill up in the kitchen and make a lot more things yourself. This is one of the best ways to save money because you can buy all of those, like I said, individual ingredients, and especially if you're buying them in bulk, you're gonna get them for even more of a steal. And then you can make a lot of your favorite things at home. Now, this is certainly not like an overnight thing. If you're someone who's watching this and you're like, I literally don't make any of my stuff, like I buy everything, then you're obviously not going to like transform into Martha Stewart overnight and be like making everything homemade tomorrow. No. But what I would recommend is start looking at the things that you are purchasing over and over that are made. For example, a great one is granola. If you're a fan of granola and you're buying like the organic one that's made with coconut oil and not soybean oil in the grocery store, you're paying buku bucks for that granola. But if you have some oats and some coconut oil and some cinnamon, honey, salt, what else is in there? Not that many things. You can make so easily plain granola at home, and then you can add dried fruit or chocolate chips or whatever you want. I always just make it plain and it's delicious. And you can make it at home so easily and for so much less money than buying that like bougie, high-end, very, you know, good ingredients, but expensive granola from the store. I do have a video on 10 things I no longer buy from the grocery store, and a lot of those things are homemade that I'm making myself. So that would be a really good place to start. But I just encourage you to pick one thing, learn how to make it, and kind of master it. Most things are pretty simple and they don't require mastery, but just make it, you know, something that this is just something that I make now, and then pick something else. And then you just slowly start adding on, and you can even get into rhythms with your kitchen and, you know, make things on certain days, and you can get really like organized and rhythmic about it so it becomes more doable. But I would just say start with one thing and go from there. My sixth tip, and this is one that I say with a grain of salt, and that is to grow your own food in whatever capacity that feels realistic to you. Now, I say this with a grain of salt because there are startup costs to all of these things. So to grow vegetables, for example, from seeds are so cheap. You can spend, I don't know, $4 or $5, you know, on a packet of organic cucumber seeds, and you will have more cucumbers than you even know what to do with throughout the summer. So like that's a crazy investment. But you also need the gardening space. You need the raised beds or the containers or the tilled land. You need the soil and the compost, and there's a lot you know, up front that you would have to purchase in order to actually be able to grow that food. But if it is something that you are committed to doing, something that you're really interested in doing, after a few years, you will certainly get your money back, and then you'll be growing your own super high quality, likely organic, much tastier homegrown food for far less than you would buy from the grocery store. And I wanted to mention, you know, vegetable gardening and like really a kitchen garden in particular first, because this is something that used to be absolutely commonplace, like less than 100 years ago. And it's just completely, almost, not completely, but it is like almost vanished from our day-to-day life in our culture today. Now, this stat, I believe, is actually from the UK, but looking at the 1940s, which is before we really kind of had this like boom in our food industry where, you know, processed, more convenience things started to come into play. But in the 1940s, like the average household would provide 92% of their fruits and vegetables in winter. 92% in winter, which means they're probably growing most of the summer and preserving it. And then they would provide 98% in summer. So pretty much everyone had a garden and was growing food. It was just part of a normal life. It was part of the culture. And I remember growing up as a very little girl, my grandfather had a big garden in their backyard and their little postage stamp on their little street in their small house. It was very humble. It was nothing fancy, nothing over the top. There was cucumbers and there was zucchinis and there was tomatoes. And I remember this, and this was just part of normal life. You had a garden. There are also just so many benefits to gardening. It's just so good for the soul. So that is something to heavily consider. But you can obviously take this much further as well. So we also have chickens in our backyard. They're laying hens. We have them for eggs, which are fantastic. Love having chickens, couldn't recommend it more. But you could also get meat chickens if you are up for that challenge and, grow your own meat, grow your own chicken. You can raise pigs pretty easily in a backyard. And I will mention, that's not something I have personally delved into. We have laying hens and that's it. But, there is an excellent book that I have and I love. It's called The Backyard Homestead, and they have so many renditions, but I had the classic Backyard Homestead book. And if this is something that you want to dive more into, but it's not like, let's buy 40 acres in the middle of nowhere. It's just literally what can I do in my HOA house with my typical backyard? What can I learn to grow and to make so that I can provide more of my own food from a cost saving standpoint. So I will link that book down below. It is packed full of wisdom and knowledge, and it's an excellent jumping off point if this is something that you want to try your hand at. My next tip is to buy locally and to buy in season. I could have lumped this into shopping outside of the grocery store, but I feel like it just needs to be its own standalone. So depending on where you live, we're now in the season, full-blown season of farmers markets. If you live somewhere that's warmer all year round, then you might have farmers markets all year round, which is amazing. I don't here on the East Coast. But shopping from farmers markets is a way to shop directly from farmers, and you're often going to spend a lot less money in some circumstances, but you're going to be getting super high quality food. So maybe it costs less, or maybe it costs the same as the grocery store, but it is fresh, it's local, you're supporting a local farmer, you're supporting your local economy, and it's just most likely, because it's fresh and hasn't been sitting for a long time, it could be even more nutritious. And don't be afraid when you are shopping at farmers markets to apply that bulk buying mentality. You can talk to these farmers, these vendors, and a lot of times they will sell you a bulk amount of something that they're selling for a lower price, because again, they're trying to move their product. They want to sell it all off. So you can talk to them about, can I buy literally all of your tomatoes and then go home and make a bunch of tomato sauce or whatever it is. And they'll probably give you a lower price. So don't be afraid to talk to them, to ask, or to even pick their brain. They're an incredible resource, and you can certainly try and save a little bit of money there too. The 8th tip that I wanted to leave with you guys that most people may not be interested in, if I'm being totally honest, but if we're talking about nourishing foods for less money, I would be totally remiss if I did not mention consuming organ meats. This is something that me personally, I am on a quest, or I want to be on a quest to really incorporate more organ meats into my diet and have it be normal instead of this strange experiment. And to any of you out there watching this who are way ahead of me and you're already doing that, then truly you're amazing, because they don't taste as good, right? We're so used to muscle meats. That's really the only animal proteins meat proteins that people consume nowadays. But our ancestors used to eat, it was truly nose to tail eating. They ate everything, they wasted nothing. And what's crazy is the organs are actually so incredibly nutrient dense, because if you think about it, organs are highly active parts of our body, highly active tissues. There is a high demand for nutrients because nutrients oftentimes are the catalyst to different cellular processes and reactions, allowing enzymes to work and so many things. But we need a lot of nutrients in order for our bodies to function, and most of what the work that's going on is inside of our organs. So when we're consuming those organs, we are consuming all of those nutrients. The liver especially is like the top of the list, and that is because not only is it a super active, important organ, but just like humans, animals store most of their nutrient stores in the liver. So when you're eating the liver, you're literally eating that animal's nutrient stores that its body, held onto so that it could sustain life. So when you are eating that, you are getting such a massive flood of nutrients that are extremely bioavailable to your body. Okay, you guys, so those are my top 8 tips on how to save money on healthy food. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I hope that you are walking away feeling motivated and inspired to start maybe doing things a little bit differently, or looking at the way that you purchase and procure food differently. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are new to my channel, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe and join my little community here on YouTube, and go ahead and hit the bell for notifications so that way the next time I upload a video, you will know when it goes live. But that is all I have for today. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.